broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, welcome back to Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And firstly, I have to apologise for the delay of the release of this podcast. There's been 3 games since the last podcast I produced, and I promise I just haven't gave up on Arsenal, and I promise I just haven't not recorded because the results haven't been that good, because even though the results haven't been that good during the week period where we played 3 games where I haven't recorded a podcast, there have been some encouraging signs. But the main focus of the podcast today will be the Villa game, but I will be answering some questions that I was asked after the Wolves game. But the main reason why I didn't produce a podcast is just because I've been sick and I've had some other issues as well. So I'm back stronger than ever and recording this podcast for you guys, and hopefully you guys enjoy. I also had some technical issues as well with the podcast hosting service that I use, and loads of issues with that. And thankfully it is now sorted, so it should be all right now. But let's just get into it, and I'll be talking about the Villa game. And it's a very disappointing game because obviously the result was poor. We lose 1-0, and it's never nice, especially when the goal was so avoidable and it was so early in the game. I mean, it was within the first 2 minutes of the game. And when that happens, I think a lot of teams are shocked, and it can take a while to get into the game, get into the rhythm, as we sort of experience. But before I go into the nooks and crannies of the actual performance, let's get into the team lineup. So Matt Ryan started in goal, which was obviously an enforced change because Bernd Leno had got sent off against Wolves. Quick comment on that. I mean, it was definitely a red card. There was no complaint. He misjudged the bounce and handled it outside the area. I mean, that is a red card, really. A goalkeeper can't handle it outside the area. So Matt Ryan had a race in time to be fit because he wasn't fit for the Wolves game. It looks like Runarsson may get a game, but Ryan made it out and came into this game and actually was probably our best performer on the day, so credit to him, which also says a lot about our team performance as well. Bellerin at right back, who was captain on the day. Rob Holding, partnering Gabriel. So Gabriel came in for his first start since the Southampton game in the FA Cup, but the first start in the Premier League for a long, long time. And he replaced David Luiz, who had got a red card, and then we appealed the red card, and it didn't get overturned, even though Jan Benderak's red card got overturned, which was ridiculous. I mean, I think most of us have spoken about how ludicrous that red card was. On first watching, I thought David Luiz didn't really help himself with his position, and I still stand by it. But I mean, the decision to give a red card and a penalty, I'm not even sure it's a foul, really. It was ludicrous. So yeah, it is what it is. So we missed David Luiz for this game. Cedric continued at left back because Kieran Tierney was not fit. And then in the midfield, it was Thomas Partey alongside Granit Xhaka. And then the front 4 was Bukayo Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Nicolas Pepe, and Alexandre Lacazette. Aubameyang had returned against the Wolves team on the bench, but this was a game that he returned. He still stayed on the bench, which I thought was the right call because I think Pepe has performed quite well on the left, and he did perform quite well on the right, actually, to credit him against Manchester United. So it's a credit to him that he's still in the lineup because he deserved it, and I think this might have been one of the first times that he had a consistent amount of starts under Mikel Arteta, which was encouraging. So obviously it was a strong lineup apart from no Leno, and I mean, you can question the replacement of Gabriel to David Luiz, but Tierney as well, also big miss as well, and it seems like his injury is just fatigue, but that's something we could talk about later down the line. So we start the game, and within 2 minutes we concede, and the blame, I think, should go to Cedric. I think it was a very poor pass. Him and Gabriel basically had a mix-up in communication. Gabriel was expecting something different. Cedric was expecting him to run onto the ball. That didn't happen. So Bertrand Traore pounced, went down the line, and the defending is awful for Rob Holding. He's ball watching. He's not got an idea where Ollie Watkins is. It should be easier to mark Ollie Watkins since he is literally the only player in the box. But Holding manages to mess it up as well. So he should take some of the blame as well because, yes, Cedric made a mistake, but there's still a defensive duty to do there, and I don't think Holding did it very well. Bertrand Traore gets the cross in, Watkins gets the shot, it deflects off Rob Holding, and wrong foots Matt Ryan, who's crawling to try and stop the goal, but he doesn't. So it's a shame, and obviously 2 minutes in, you don't want that kind of start, and especially since we played well against Wolves but didn't get the result. This was a game that we started poorly and continued quite poorly in the first half. I've got the stats here. So we had 5 shots in the first half, but only 1 was on target. We did have a lot of possession, but it wasn't as good as it could be. So to have 5 shots, 3 off target was pretty poor. We didn't really do anything with the ball. There were a couple conscious decisions as well in the first half. I mean, there was the Saka red card potentially. I mean, he's pretty much through on goal. I think he's outpacing Konza, and Konza pulls him down. Now, I think it's difficult. I can understand why the referee only gave a yellow, but in the context of the week that we've had and the decisions that have gone against us, I think him being pulled down there and not getting a red card just sums up our week and just sums up how much of a inconsistency the referees have, because I'm pretty sure if that was David Luiz who was pulling down Jack Grealish on the break, that he would have got red. So it's just consistency, I think, is what most fans ask for in these decisions, and we just got none of that at all. That was obviously bad. So Konza got a yellow, and then he went through the back of Lacazette and didn't get a second yellow, which was ridiculous. I think in terms of the game itself, I think Villa were very good defensively. I have to credit Matty Cash on the right-hand side, who absolutely locked down Nicolas Pepe pretty much throughout the game. There were a couple of times where Pepe did get past him, but I thought he was fantastic at right back. And what was clear to me with Villa was that they had a lot of rotational fouling throughout the game. They were constantly targeting Saka, especially Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish put in a hell of a shift, to be fair to him, but they were definitely fouling Saka. I guess that's credit to Saka because it just shows how dangerous of a player he is to keep getting fouled. But it is a worry, obviously, when every time you see him go down on the floor and you suspect an injury with him because he is getting fouled and not getting protected by the referees. Because with rotational fouling, they're allowed to do it because the referee is not booking them and not dishing out yellow cards. And the referee on the day, Chris Kavanagh, that's it, that's the referee. And I don't think he had a very good game. I know it's very difficult to speak about refs, and I don't want to get into an absolute slagging match with the ref. I think I don't really like Chris Kavanagh as a ref because I think the one thing he is very inconsistent with his decisions, but he also penalises for very little, and I felt that with Arsenal. But again, this is probably just my bias speaking through because I'm an Arsenal fan, so I can't really comment on it, but I just don't think he had a really good game. In terms of the other chances we had in the first half, I think the only other one I can think of was, I think Pepe had a deflected shot that went over the bar, which was a good effort. I think he if I look at the stats here, he had 3 shots, 1 blocked, but they were all off target. So he had a really weird game. But I think the one thing about Pepe is that he does shoot a lot, and I think, yes, sometimes they could be wayward, but I think he's a very effective shooter when sometimes you get other players who don't shoot enough. So credit him for at least getting the shots off. But the only other chance we had was a really good Granit Xhaka free kick, which was saved brilliantly by Emi Martinez, and we'll get to him later for another decision. But we go in at half-time 1-0 down. I don't think we had deserved a goal and played the best. So, yeah, to go in 1-0 down was a kicker, because it basically meant that Villa could sit back on that lead and know that Arsenal can't really create. And I know we've improved recently with the creative ability and how we've been performing, but this was definitely a game that we struggled to create, definitely in the first half. I think it changed a bit in the second half, but in the first half it was poor. So we come out in the second half and we make 2 changes within the first 20 minutes of the game. Aubameyang comes on for Lacazette, which was sort of the right change, because I think Lacazette hadn't played very well in the first half. I think it was one of those games for Lacazette, so possibly it was right to bring Aubameyang on. And I think the other change made a bit more sense, which was Cedric coming off and Martin Odegaard coming on, which put Saka at left back, which was a shame. But what tended to happen now, because obviously Pepe had struggled against Matty Cash all game, what happened now was that Saka got away from Jack Grealish, because Grealish had been putting in a great shift against Saka. I think there was a bit of rivalry because they seem to be good friends, Saka and Grealish, which could help in potential transfers maybe. But I think Grealish had a job to do on Saka, and then I think when you move him away, yes, he's gone further away from goal, but it allowed him to run on the outside of Pepe and basically struggle with 2-on-1, because I don't think Bertrand Traore was really good at covering his man as well as Grealish was. But I think when Odegaard came on, I think we done well. And this was the first time that we had seen Odegaard play with Emile Smith-Rowe. And I'm someone who's championed this idea that they can play together. And it looked like they were switching between each other. So Smith-Rowe would go on the right, but then Odegaard would go on the right. It was very interchangeable. And I think they had a good chemistry. And the one thing I can say about Odegaard is that he looked like he had an instant relationship with pretty much everyone on the pitch, which was really encouraging. And I think I was surprised he didn't start the game, but I think just because of how much or lack of match fitness he's had, that I think starting him lack of starts is not in favour of him, and I don't think Odegaard is 100% match fit, basically. But when he came on, I think he done well, and I think he linked up with a lot of players, and I think we started to play well in the second half. I think we were pushing the ball forward more. We were keeping Villa in their box. I think we had our best spell in the second half. I mean, we had 71% possession. I know Villa didn't really have to go forward because obviously we were behind. We had to chase the game. It did open us up to some counter-attacks, which Villa exploited well, but I think in terms of actual build-up, we were much better in the second half. I think Odegaard had a couple of really nice passes. There was one to Pepe, which was quite far through, like a through ball, and then he got tackled quite easily by the left back on the day, Matty Target. But there was another decision that went against us, I think, and it was the corner against Lacazette, and Lacazette's shirt getting pulled by Emi Martinez. Now, obviously, Emi is an ex-Arsenal player, and a lot of fans do like him and think that he should have been kept instead of Bernd Leno. Yes, I think it was a penalty because he's tugging his shirt. I don't know how he was given a free kick to Villa. I don't understand why, but I think he's tugging his shirt. It wasn't given as a penalty. I don't understand why it could not be a penalty in that instance. VAR didn't even look at it. And again, it's a decision that's amplified because of the Wolves game before and because of how poor we performed in that game because of the red card. That first half against Wolves was probably our best first half, our best performance under Mikel Arteta, and it was free flowing. We should have been 2-3 up. It just worked. It just clicked, and I don't think Wolves deserved the win and were gifted the win by a very, very, very soft red card and penalty. And then obviously they scored an absolute wonder goal, which can happen. When decisions like this go against you, you do struggle, and I think in your mind you think, oh, well, everything's against us. And I think that's what a lot of fans are going on about at the moment. But obviously, not everything's against us. It's just we're not getting the rub of the green, if you will, at the moment. And hopefully that will change soon, because there will be a time where we get the lucky decisions as well, but it just seems like everything's going against us at the moment. I think the change that put us more downward was Willian, and I think he came on as a sub. Was a weird one anyway, because I think Partey went down injured, which looks like a hamstring injury, but it's turned out it looked more serious than it actually was, and he could be back for the Leeds game this weekend, which is really encouraging because obviously Partey's our best midfielder. He's built up a really good relationship with Granit Xhaka in the midfield. Granit Xhaka's looked very good since the Burnley sending off. So that was a big blow. And I think I understand the switch, because I think he's put Willian on for more technical security. But I think in this instance, he's maybe overthinked it and should have just done a straight swap with Ceballos for Partey. And I think that was a misstep bringing Willian on. He was not very good at all. He was very, very poor in the game when he came on, and he was probably our worst player if you think about it. And that's saying something when Cedric made a mistake and played 50, 60 minutes, and Willian came on and was still pretty much worse than him. Yeah, I think it took one of Emil Smith-Rowe and Martin Odegaard away from goal a bit more. I think we started to play in a 4-3-3, so Xhaka at the tip and with Odegaard and Smith-Rowe as kind of dual eights, which I think can work in concept, but I think this team needs someone in that 10 space, and I think when you've pulled them further away from goal to bring someone like Willian, I don't think it works as well. So it was difficult, and Willian's obviously not going to be in the 10 space very often, and it just kind of changed the game for the worse for us. So in the second half in general, we had 9 shots, but only 3 on target. To be fair, we had 4 blocked shots, which was great from Villa. It just showed how great they were defensively. Yeah, it was. That's how it ended. It ended 1-0 to Aston Villa, and I think it was a disappointing game. But I think a lot of people lost their way with Mikel Arteta and their review of the game. I think a lot of it is clouded by how poorly we had done earlier in the season. I think obviously that was poor, and you can go back to me on this podcast saying I think he should go, but credit to the manager. He came back, introduced a new system when we were putting players in the correct positions, in the right positions. We had some success with the new system, and we played very well against Chelsea. We ground out a win against Brighton, played very, very well against West Brom, then had Newcastle in the Cup. We played all right in that game, drew against Palace, beat Newcastle again, had a very good win against Southampton away from home, and then obviously drew against Manchester United, which I think that was a game which could have gone either way, but I think Man United had the better chances, if you will, because Cavani missed a couple of sitters, but I think we had chances in that game as well. And then obviously it came to this week when we lost 2 games in a row, and I think the Wolves game was obviously very unlucky, but the Villa game was probably the worst performance we've had in the system, maybe tied with the Palace game. But I think people want instant success and instant results, and I get that. As a fan, you want to see your team winning games, and I get that. But I think from where we were to where we are now, in terms of the performances, it's very different. Because I think now there's at least some cohesion, there's some relationships. You've got Saka and Smith Rowe combining. Pepe looks a different player now than he did when we were playing the really bad stuff earlier in the season. We now have another number 10, another attacking midfielder in Martin Odegaard, and he looked impressive in this game. He obviously had that chance to equalise, which he blazed over the bar, which was a really big chance for him, and he should do better. He should at least hit the target, but he blazed it over. I think the midfielders look better because there's an actual partnership that actually looks like it works. Xhaka's improved since that Burnley sending off, and Partey's looked great beside him. There are encouraging signs, even if you cannot see, and even if you think that Mikel Arteta is the wrong guy. I'm not saying that Mikel Arteta is the new Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, whatever. I'm not saying that, trust me. But all I'm saying is rebuilds and stuff of that nature take time, and it's not always a linear progression. It's not always going to be, okay, we've improved, we're just going to keep going up, and reach the moon sort of thing. It is going to be a roller coaster ride. There are going to be some bumps in the road, and we've had some bumps this week. Now, obviously, if Mikel Arteta goes back to the really bad football we played earlier in the season, and we go a month again without a victory, then that's different. But the performances and the system that we've been playing at least looks more coherent. At least looks like it can build something towards. I'm not saying the players are rubbish, and I'm not saying the players are amazing, but a lot of people came back at me when I suggested this on Twitter by saying the players are better than where we are, which is, I think we're 11th at the moment, which is true when you look at it on paper. We have bemoaned the transfer activity and the squad building that we've produced because it's not coherent and it's not with any kind of plan in mind. Those players that have come in don't necessarily fit together. Lacazette and Aubameyang are the two that I just cannot think of why we bought them both. And that's not to say that they've been bad for Arsenal. I mean, Aubameyang won us a trophy and Lacazette has had his moments. But I think you can have good players, but them not fit together in a squad. And I don't think both of them fit together in the squad. And I think in Mikel Arteta's system, I don't think Aubameyang fits as a striker, for example. I think Lacazette does, but I think Lacazette has declined since his best period in 2018-19. So it's difficult, and Arsenal have a lot to do in terms of squad building in the transfer market, and obviously that's up to Edu, that's up to Arteta himself, because he's now manager. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not saying be patient. I'm just saying I can look at these performances and at least see something of some kind of hope. You listened to my podcast before and I had very little hope. I was very down on the team. I thought we were in a relegation battle, and now we've turned it around. We're just mid-table at the moment, and that could change because I've used it a lot, but football can change very quickly. And Manchester United, for example, 2 years ago looked poor as well and looked like a top 8 side, top 6 side, but then brought in quality, brought in players that really changed their team, and now look at them. I think coaching can only get you so far. It is also about quality of player, and we need some quality players, but obviously we are restricted financially, so it is a bit difficult. But I've rambled on about that too much, so that was just more of a defence of Mikel Arteta. In terms of the performances, I think Matt Ryan had a good performance. I think he made a couple of great saves. I think one of the shocking things about him is that when he makes a save, he really thunders the ball out of play, like away from the danger, which is really encouraging. I think Leno sometimes, when he makes a save, it will fumble it into danger. But I think Ryan had a good game apart from conceding the goal. I think he had a good game. There's a very good video on Arsenal's YouTube page and on their Twitter of a mic session of Matt Ryan throughout the game, so you can hear him speak, and it's very encouraging. I recommend to give it a listen, just because you can hear him. But I think for an Arsenal debut, for an Arsenal fan, I think it's very encouraging. And obviously he will probably sit out now the game against Leeds because Leno will be back. But if that is his only appearance in an Arsenal shirt, he done well, and I think that's all you can ask for in a backup keeper. I think he looks better than Runarsson. He looks competent at least, and I think with Runarsson, I think that's maybe something that you can't really guarantee. Although Runarsson did do well against Wolves when called upon, so it's difficult. So yeah, that was the only real performance I think that was worth mentioning about. Like I said, Odegaard I think looked good when he came on, and I think maybe the Leeds game maybe is a game that we should play him in, but that is something that we can talk about later in the week. Right, so I rambled on a bit too long about the game and completely forgot questions. So I'm going to take some questions that were asked to me last week after the Manchester United game. I think there's only a couple actually that sort of relate now, and one from @Kitman Ramsey and one from Tisanori regular contribution. They're basically asking about Nicolas Pepe, and can Nicolas Pepe become Arsenal's MVP? And that's from Kitman Ramsey. And Tisanori asks, I already saw someone ask about Pepe, and sorry this is coming a bit late. Does Orba get back into the team? For me, yes, but his importance seems to be dropping as time passes. So it's mainly about the Pepe Aubameyang kind of debate. I think Pepe's looks good in the week. He played very well against Manchester United. It was a very disciplined performance. He looked very hungry in that game. He looks very electric against Wolves. His goal against Wolves was terrific. He wins the ball, beats two men, nutmegs one of them, and curls it in with his right foot. He looked fantastic against Wolves, and then obviously the red card happened. The Villa game, he was a bit less involved, but I think the team as a whole was bad on the day. It was definitely a worse performance than the Wolves game. So it is difficult. Obviously, you can have Aubameyang and Pepe in the same team, and I think they've actually striked up quite a good relationship. I just think what's difficult about including both of them in the team is that they're both very low-touch players. I think, yes, Pepe can get the ball and can dribble with it. Aubameyang can't do that. But I think Pepe likes space a lot, and I think sometimes if you play both Pepe and Aubameyang, you're relying on him to dribble past players to get into the striker. I think it works with Saka because I think Saka has a good relationship with Emile Smith-Rowe. And I think, to be fair, Pepe has had a good relationship with the number 10. And I think him and Smith-Rowe actually linked up quite well. And I think that's at least encouraging in that right. But it is a difficult conundrum. I think the performance against Villa will probably open up the debate of if Aubameyang should start against Leeds. Because I think in the Villa game, I wouldn't have dropped Pepe. I think Pepe had done well and he deserved his place, and Aubameyang had to wait. But now it opens up the conundrum of what we do against Leeds. Does Aubameyang come back in on the left and Pepe takes the bench? Or does Aubameyang go up front? I think what's key with Pepe is just getting him central. That is the big thing that we have to do with him, is that we get him to central spaces more. If we keep him on the touchline, I don't think that's a good use of his skills. I think you don't see that with Mo Salah, for example, and I think they're similar players, if not Mo Salah being infinitely better than Pepe. But I think their skill set is quite comparable, and I think it's about getting him in the right positions. And I think being on the left has got him central more because there's been someone overlapping him. That left-hand side that we play in this system is more of a second striker role, whereas the right-hand side is more hug the touchline, and I think Saka does that well, and I don't think Pepe does that as well as Saka does. So it's just about getting him central more, and I think he's improved, which is encouraging. His talent, I think, is one of the better ones in the squad. And I think if we can get him performing and doing well with consistency, then we are doing well with him. It's difficult because I like Aubameyang as well, but I think him on the left is so wasted because he gets very few touches on the ball. I think Pepe on the left was a bit better, and the two best performances we saw from Pepe didn't have Aubameyang in the team. So it is a bit difficult, but we will see what the manager does in the next game. But thank you for your question, guys. And then we just got one more question from, again, at Titanori. This was after the Wolves game, after the Villa game, sorry, where he asked me this question. And they asked, do you think we can win the Europa or get top 6? Let's have a look at the table right now. So Arsenal are 11th on 31 points with 23 games played. Southampton can go above us if they win their game in hand, but Southampton haven't won any in the last 5. So they're in really poor form. All the teams above us, up to West Ham in 6th, have played less games than us. So they can increase the lead. We're 4 points off 9th, and we are 8 points off 6th. So I think it's difficult. We would have to basically win every single game and hope the others slip up. So I think top 6 is gone. I think we just have to focus on getting the highest position we can, using the rest of the Premier League games to embed this system, and hopefully we can do better next season. Obviously, if it goes really wrong and we finish 13th, 14th, then obviously we will have a different discussion. But I think it's just about getting this system in place and getting the players playing to it, getting them used to it, and then in the summer recruiting quality players who can fit into the systems and upgrade on those other players. In terms of the Europa, I think it's very difficult. Obviously, we face Benfica. It's now been confirmed that both the ties will be at neutral venues. The first leg will be in Rome, and then the second leg will be in Greece. Although that hasn't 100% been confirmed, it looks like it will be in Greece at Olympiacos Stadium. So away goals still apply. Benfica are 4th in the division in the Portuguese league, have only won 1 in their last 5, and obviously that's a much different league. They're 11 points off the leaders, Sporting. So it will be a tough game. Benfica are a good side, and I think it is one of the more tricky draws we could have got in the Europa League. I think it's difficult with the Europa League because I think teams like Manchester United are still in there, who have dropped out from the Champions League. Milan have done very well this season. Leicester are still in there. Spurs, obviously, as well. Roma are still in there as well. Napoli, Ajax, Lille. So there are some difficult games in this. I mean, Villarreal as well. We would have to do a lot, and obviously we've done very well in the FA Cup last year. it would be beautiful to win the Europa League, but I think it is going to be highly unlikely just because of how we've performed this season. And I think when we face a very good team, I think it will be very difficult. I think it's just written in the stars that we'll probably get knocked out by Unai Emery's Villarreal. So to answer your question, I think we won't get top 6, and I don't think we will win the Europa League. So that's a bundle of joys, isn't it? But thank you for your questions. There was only a few this week. Like I said, I've been ill and I've had technical issues, so it's been a bit difficult to do this podcast. But I hope you've enjoyed, and I will be back after the Leeds game to record a podcast. I may start doing the Benfica, the Europa League games, because obviously it's now starting to heat up into the knockout rounds. I don't think there's anything to really add in the group stages of the Europa League, because usually we play very second string sides. But now that we are in the Europa League again in the later stages, then we can look forward now, and I can do some podcasts talking about our run in the Europa League. So thank you for sticking with me. Hit like, hit subscribe, review on Apple Podcasts, review on Spotify. Just share it around so there's more interaction, and I'll catch you on the next one. Come on, you guys.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and Hui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?